There we go. I think, I think all the tech is good. Excellent. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Leela Sinha. This is Power Pivot Impolite Conversations, where we talk about stuff that no one's talking about. And the thing that I wanted to really address today is a kind of extension of the last live I did. So the last time I went live, I talked a little bit about growth and villainy and how growth shouldn't make you into a villain, but often it does. And so this is kind of a part two, because I want to dive a little deeper into the things that scare me and that I think scare a lot of other really awesome people who are running businesses, and some of the ways that we might ask the right questions and kind of move forward. Anyway, so the thing that scares me, and I mentioned this a little in the last video, is that thing that happens where somebody comes to power, comes to growth, comes to being bigger in the public eye, and I don't know how else to say it. Like, they get evil. And one of the things that happens in that evilness process is a kind of justification, is a kind of adjustment to the evilness. And it's tricky because we do have to adjust. We have to adjust our personalities. We have to adjust our expectations. We have to adjust so much when we become entrepreneurs, and then when we start to grow as entrepreneurs, or when we become leaders and we start to grow as leaders, running organizations, founding organizations. There are things we have to change. We have to change our thinking about a lot of the ways that we handle big decisions. For example, we can't necessarily do the best thing for every involved individual. We have to do the best thing for the collective, the whole, the company. Like, we're carrying a different kind of portfolio, a different kind of responsibility when we come into leadership. And that's important to know and important to do, is to be prepared to make those shifts and to be mindful of those shifts and adjust as we should. That's all great. But there's also a kind of rationalization or justification of doing things badly. And that's not okay, right? Doing things wrong, doing things that we understand are bad, but that we can't really see it or find a way around. And so it becomes very tricky very fast to determine which things are just adjustments that come with leadership, and which things are adjustments that we're making to let ourselves off the hook morally. And, this might be, it might be around pay rates, or it might be around the way that we treat people that we employ. It might be around the way that we treat our clients or customers, or the people who are coming to us for whatever it is we're offering. It might be about the way we think about them. Maybe we don't treat them any differently, but now we think about them as kind of dollars and cents instead of thinking about them as people. It might be that we stop doing the thing that we would most want to receive if we were a client or a customer, and we start doing the thing that is better for the business. And again, it's tricky because we do hold the portfolio of nourishing and nurturing the business. That's part of our role as a leader. And also, when we hold that portfolio, we have to hold it in concert with the fact that the individuals we're interacting with are still people. They're still humans. They still have basic human rights that we want to uphold. If we don't want to uphold them, then if you don't want to uphold human rights, then you should probably just stop watching my channel right now, because human rights are kind of at the center of everything. So the difference between being morally correct, or morally, I won't even say correct, morally better, and being morally worse can be a very fuzzy line. The trolley problem, if you have one person who's going to die or 5 people who are going to die, what do you do? of course, as leaders, our instinct is to say, stop the trolley. But you can't break a trolley that fast. And so we do end up making a lot of decisions where it's one person versus five people who are going to be harmed or going to be come out of it with less than what they wanted. And how do we incorporate that? How do we take care of that? And if we want to remain in integrity with ourselves, in integrity with our communities, and simultaneously recognize that the communities we come out of are not necessarily going to support or approve of the fact that we are growing and the fact that we are becoming bigger names, the fact that we are potentially making more money or bringing more money into the organization or both, that all of those things will make a lot of people nervous if they are concerned with morals, because we have this interesting conflation of wealth and immorality. And at the absolute upper echelons, the multi-billionaire levels, I think that's a fair argument to make. But at the levels that most of us understand to be wealthy, that's not as much of a problem as we think it is. Assuming we're making our money without exploiting, without causing unnecessary harm, all of those things. At any rate, I'm recording, so hopefully we'll get one or the other. I don't think that we have any business at all just ignoring it, just brushing it under the rug. What I do think that we need to be doing is balancing them and making sure that we have, as I've said over and over now, a community around us that helps us recognize when we're tipping the scale too far in one direction. Now, another thing I really think needs to be addressed, especially for those of us who are marginalized in some way or other, is what is the difference between being a villain and taking up space? Because especially AFAB folks who were raised and socialized as female, but also a lot of other marginalized people learned early on that taking up space was itself a kind of evil. We learned that A, we weren't supposed to do it according to the power structures that we lived in, and B, we learned that we weren't supposed to take up space according to our peers who found it threatening or who found it overwhelming. And so a lot of us shrank. And this definitely overlaps with intensive and expansive identities. If you haven't taken the assessment, I suggest you do that. That's at intensivesinstitute.com/assessment. I suggest you take the long form and then just do a little bit of reading on my website or watch some of my videos about intensives and expansives to familiarize yourself, or buy the book. There's a book called You're Not Too Much. It's available on Amazon. The subtitle is Intensive Lives in an Expansive World. So there's definitely a thing about taking up too much space is bad. And we have to, again, disambiguate, really disentangle these two concepts. The idea of taking up a lot of space is one of those concepts. And the idea of, my notes just went into sleep mode. And the idea of allowing ourselves to be fully who we are and to lead fully as who we are, because leadership qualities often include things that involve taking up space. Give me 1 second to get my notes back. I really have to change the settings on that. Okay. So what is the difference between being a villain and taking up space? On the one hand, taking up space can involve asking for what you need, requiring what you need, refusing to show up when you don't get what you've asked for or when your boundaries aren't being respected, having boundaries, establishing them and using them, and requiring people to honor them, saying yes when you mean yes, saying no when you mean no, being willing to negotiate through the yes and no process to find something that works for you and the other person or the other people. Reaching for consensus wherever it's available, where it's not available, trying to do the least harm. Like, all of those things can be taking up space, and they're very leaderly. When a villain enters the scene, it almost always is obvious because that villain is only accounting for their own best interests. They're only accounting for themselves. And as leaders, we hold the umbrella, right? We have to be accountable to ourselves and to our own needs, yes, and that's the taking up space part, and to everybody else's, and that's the leaderly part. So we have to balance. We have to make sure that they go together. If you're finding yourself resentful because one of your employees is knocking off exactly at 5 o'clock and you're working late every night and you're mad about it, the odds are that you're mad about it because you are not able to knock off at 5 o'clock and you're tired and you're overworked. And that requires then that you figure out how to be less overworked, that you require less of yourself, that you be a good boss and a good leader for yourself. That's not villainy. That's taking up the space that you need. If you need a lesson in space taking, I highly recommend Tricia Hersey's Nap Ministry. She calls herself the Nap Bishop, and she has an Instagram account and a few other outlets, and I highly recommend that you follow her work. She is a Black woman doing amazing work about rest, and space taking. So when you're being a villain, you are taking up space at the expense of other people, or or without regard for other people. When you're just taking up space, you're taking up space for yourself and accounting for the impact of that and accounting for the needs of the other people around you. But what you're not doing is sacrificing yourself. Because when you're sacrificing yourself, when you're actually overworking yourself to make sure nobody else overworks, that's not actually great leadership. I mean, you can do a little of it, but overall, taking care of your people means taking care of the system in such a way that everybody gets nourished, everybody gets supported, everybody gets what they need, including you. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Oh, right. So the questions that we need to ask ourselves as we move into leadership, as we grow, include things like, where are you most afraid of being corrupted? Where are you most afraid of, most likely to be corrupted? Where are you most likely to cut corners? Where are you most likely to dehumanize people? Where are you most likely? And rather than saying that makes you a bad person, it just makes you human. Like we all have areas of greater vulnerability to these issues. So where are you most likely to succumb to the impulse to not quite do things right? Where are you most likely to say, well, that's just the cost of doing business, and I have to have a thicker skin? Like anytime you hear yourself say that, anytime you start to run the scripts in your head about like, well, I need a tougher skin and I just need to check yourself. Make sure that what's happening is that you're actually honestly, like, on YouTube, either don't allow comments or don't read the comments. Sometimes you shouldn't. Sometimes you shouldn't engage. Sometimes it's not about the outside feedback. Sometimes, you're fine. But you really do need to make sure that you're not messing yourself up. And so know where your areas of greatest vulnerability are, where the places are that you are most likely to short yourself in terms of what you can and can't give yourself, in terms of what resources you're most likely to remove from your own environment, and make sure you're not doing that to yourself or to anyone else. Anytime you feel yourself starting to move toward, well, I don't know why they can't suck it up and deal. The question is, what are you sucking up and dealing about? What is it that you need to address in your own situation so that you can have compassion and so that people can be like delighted, so that people can be happy and want to work for you, and not just want to work for you, but develop a loyalty toward you because they feel like you care about them, because you do care about them. You're not creating a fiction. You actually do care about the people as well as the institution, as well as the organizational health, as well as the public, public image of the company, whatever it is, right? And when you do this, I originally wrote in my notes, take a look, but what I really mean is take a feel. Like, notice when you start to feel because your gut is going to be at the front. Your gut is going to be ahead of everything else. Your heart will want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Your head will want to think and rationalize, but your gut will be like, this doesn't feel right. And if this doesn't feel right is your overarching feeling, it's not right, and you need to stop and you need to figure it out. Either you'll figure out that you have some stuff that you need to work through that's making it hard for you to take care of yourself or to be the leader that you want to be, or you'll figure out that you're actually doing something that you shouldn't be doing, that you shouldn't be doing, that you're kind of morally opposed to, and you'll figure out then what you need to evolve into, how you need to evolve the process. Do you need to stop? Do you need to slow down? In this like grind culture era, there's so much about like, get it out there as much as possible, release it right away. And you know what? No. Sometimes it needs to have a little more space around it. This launch for the Crow's Nest is the first time that I have in any way, shape, or form given myself the space to launch it gently, the space to launch it without kind of a frantic push. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is it's an expensive program. It's for a lot of people, depending on who you are. For some people, $3,600 is not much. For some people, $3,600 is an enormous amount of money. And I want people to have the time and the space they need to make a decision around that, to see if that fits into their budget, if that fits into their plan for the year, if the kind of work that we're doing is the kind of work that will fit in with your rhythm at this moment, right? Ideally, if this works well, and we never know until we run a program the first time, but ideally what I'm hoping is that this program will be run again and again. However, I can't promise that. I cannot promise it. So if this is something that you're like, I kind of want to do it, but I'm not sure, get on the phone, make an appointment with me for an intro call, give me a call, or type to me. I'm happy to type. Let's have a chat. Let's talk about whether or not Crow's Nest is right for you. So what is the Crow's Nest? The Crow's Nest is a two-part, it's two separate 3-month programs that are linked. The fall program runs from September in the fall equinox to almost Yule, so almost winter solstice. So mid-September to mid-December-ish. And it has a theme of decomposition. What am I already doing that I need to undo? What thought patterns do I have that I need to unmake or shift? What do I need to evolve? What needs to evolve? What is not in the right place right now in my business or leadership practice, and I need to evolve it. And so we're going to be going through a process of examining what's there, how it needs to come apart, and then putting it back together again. It is not a weekly meeting thing. We gather as a large group at the beginning, and then we gather as a large group in the middle, and then we gather as a large group at the end. In between, you'll be meeting with your cohort of 6, and your cohort of 6 will be the context in which you do a lot of your lower level examination and hopefully form some strong bonds. Hopefully, this will help you build a community in an ongoing way, because we all need colleagues. We all need communities that we can rely on. So again, we gather at the beginning to kind of kick ourselves off, and then there's guided work for the next few weeks, and then we gather in the middle to kind of go over our guided work, see what's happening, see where we go from here. So that guided work is both in the groups of 6 and by yourself. And then after that so it's beginning, guided work, middle, guided work, end. So the first batch of guided work is about envisioning, dreaming what you have. Then that middle section where we gather together is about engaging the community and helping you to examine what you've done in your guided work. And then that second batch of guided work is implementation, because I know I'm a business owner myself. We can't just expect people to implement. We have to create space and time for implementation. So rather than having you leave with some great ideas at the end of half of the program, at the end of about 6 or 7 weeks, we're going to take the next 6 or 7 weeks for implementation. And then at the end, we'll gather to celebrate what we did, to examine what we didn't do and figure out why we didn't do it, and to enjoy each other. The spring one is about generation. So fall is decomposition. Spring is generation. We'll start at Ostara, which is Easter-ish. It's the spring equinox, and run till midsummer, which is summer solstice, with Beltane in the middle, which is the whole season is about fecundity and generation. Now, just a word for my Southern Hemisphere folks. I know this is very Northern Hemisphere oriented in the way I'm describing it. However, I did consider swapping them. And the reason I considered swapping them is because of the way that we have to prepare to roll things out. So as a business owner, you always have to be like a season or two ahead of where your business is going. So if you were to join and come be with us even in the Southern Hemisphere, what you would end up with is doing your generative work so that you can roll something out in January. Your decomposition work so that you're ready to roll things out, and then your generative work will come in what is your fall generation, so that you'll be rolling out not in January, but in winter, like as your winter comes out. So we can swap the seasons. We can swap the seasons if you want to. However, if that feels weird, totally cool. I get it. The way that I've shaped it does lean toward the Northern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere seasons in the way that we traditionally understand them. But again, I thought about swapping them because you want to be preparing to roll things out before spring, and you want to be preparing to decompose before winter. So you can look at it either way. What else do I want to say about it? It's $3,600. There is a 2-payment option. You can pay 2 payments in 2 consecutive months. So it's a 2-month payment plan of $1,800 each. So if breaking it up into 2 payments will work better for you, that's great. The cart is going to close at the beginning of September is the plan. So this is not a surprise. I hate that kind of marketing. The cart's going to close at the beginning of September, so you have about 3 weeks left to make a decision about whether to join us. Again, contact me, get on the phone, get on chat, ask me questions. The thing that I'm really hoping is that this creates an atmosphere of growth, of mutual inquiry, of learning, and of elevating morality to an equal status in the startup and company development world, because if you are teetering on the edge of bigness, of occupying all this space, if you're teetering on the edge of fame, right, it becomes really necessary to have this integrated into your bones as you come to that point. And if you are already at a point where you have a lot of visibility, you have a book deal, whatever it is, and you're out there, you have a publicist, then making sure that what you say and do in public is in alignment with what you believe is absolutely dead critical, because the PR nightmares happen when it's not. And getting panned in public is not something that any of us wants. And if you find yourself saying, well, that haters going to hate, it's true. Haters are going to hate. And if you know you've done something, it feels totally different, right? If you know you've done something wrong, it feels totally different from if you know that if you're really solid, that you're right. And rightness doesn't really come from facts. Rightness comes from moral integrity and acting in accordance with your beliefs. So my goal is that as you grow your company to be the next Facebook, as you grow your company to be the next Uber, right? As you grow to be a large, influential institution, and some of you will grow to, fractions of that, and some of you will grow to be that big. As you grow to be these large, influential institutions, my goal, my dream is that more and more of you will grow to be leaders of large influential institutions with really rock solid ethics that are known for being great places to work, that are known for being great to their employees, that are known for making the best possible decision, even when it's a really hard time, even when you have to do layoffs, or even when you have to, cut back on an entire program that was really good for the world because you just don't have the resources. Even in those moments, being able to make the best possible decision morally comes from being at the beginning stage, or comes from infusing that culture, if it's already grown, infusing that culture deliberately with ethics and morality as part of the framework. So that's my goal with this work, is to really help individual leaders and leadership teams and entire organizations move toward this more moral decision-making process. That's all I've got today. I will probably be live again soon. Be sure to tell people about the Crow's Nest if you feel like they would be a good fit. I am absolutely excited about having a fabulous group of folks. It's going to be very small. Not only are you working in a group of 6 for most of the time, but also the entire program is capped at 24 people. And it may not get to 24 because it's got to be the right people. So if you sign up and we have a conversation and I feel like that's not great, I will refund your money and give it back to you and send you on your way. But I actually have a lot of faith in you as my people, as the people who listen to me, that you will know if this is the right program for you, especially if you have a conversation with me beforehand. But even if you don't, that you'll know, like your gut will be like, yes, this is the thing, or not. And if it is the thing, then you'll sign up. And if it's not the thing, then you won't. And that's cool. Either way, I really, really want the right people in this program. I want you in there because this is the work that you want to do and you are committed to making space for it. So absolutely share this with people that you think are a good fit. Absolutely ask me questions. Absolutely examine your own process. Are you growing to a point where you are starting to hesitate to do things in public because you're not sure you're going to do them right? Because I noticed that in myself and I was like, oh, all right, I got to stop that. And what I did was I got myself a collegial group to spend time with, to workshop this kind of stuff with. But you shouldn't have to do that on your own. And that's part of what the Crow's Nest is for. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to me talk about growth and villainy and how not to be a villain just because you're growing, how to be a good power holder, how to keep from that split, right? Because if we look at like Marvel videos, what you find is that in the movies, especially the old storylines, you have people with power and they grow up to a certain point, and then as they really come into their power, there's this split, right? Some of them become villains and some of them become superheroes. And the difference is really about the ethical framework or the morality around them. And sometimes that comes from a variety of outside influences, but that's the split. And we want you to end up on the superhero side, not trying to be a solo superhero, burn yourself out superhero, always perfect superhero, not that, but a more human, more sustainable kind of goodness. That's what we want, is goodness. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you again soon.